The Lighthouse Keeper's Promise. Eva stared out at the horizon where the sea and sky blended into a vast, unbroken expanse. The lighthouse towered behind her, its light a steady pulse against the encroaching dusk. Though she had taken this solitary post to find peace, the days stretched endlessly, and the nights were a reminder of the void she sought to escape. Her escape from the city life had been sudden and complete. After walking in on her fiancé Andrew in the arms of someone else, Eva had packed her bags, abandoned her career in event planning, and answered an ad for a lighthouse keeper. It felt like a calling, a place where no one would expect her to smile, to explain, or to pretend she was okay. The sea was unforgiving, just as love had been, and she sought solace in its cold embrace. As she lit the lantern that evening, a sound broke through the monotony of crashing waves. A faint cry, human and desperate. She stepped out onto the balcony, scanning the jagged rocks below. There, struggling against the tide, was a man, his body splayed against the rocks. Her breath caught in her throat. Grabbing the emergency rope and tying it off, she began her descent. When she reached him, the man's clothes were soaked through, his skin pale and lips trembling. He looked up at her with wide green eyes. "You're okay now," she said, looping the rope around his waist and securing it to herself. "I've got you." Together they climbed to safety. By the time they reached the lighthouse, the man could barely stand. She helped him inside, draped a blanket over his shoulders, and handed him a steaming mug of tea. "Thank you," he croaked, his voice hoarse from the cold. "I thought I was done for." "You're lucky I heard you," she said, studying him. "What were you doing out there?" "My boat capsized," he explained between sips. "The waves were stronger than I expected." "Boating along in these waters? You're either brave or reckless." "Marine biologist," he said with a weak smile. "Recklessness is part of the job." Eva nodded, intrigued despite herself. His name, she soon learned, was Liam. He was in his early 30s like her and had come to the coastal village to study the local coral reefs. Though she told herself he would leave as soon as he recovered, she found herself lingering by his side, curious about the man who had washed ashore. His quiet strength and humility drew her in, even as she tried to keep a safe distance. Liam stayed longer than expected, his recovery slowed by a minor injury to his leg. Eva begrudgingly allowed him to remain, partly out of the guilt and partly because his presence disrupted the monotony of her days. He quickly made himself useful, repairing small fixtures in the lighthouse and carrying supplies up the steep hill when her back protested the effort. In return, Eva cooked, though she warned him not to expect culinary masterpieces. "You're saving my life twice over," Liam teased one evening, poking at a bowl over salted soup. "First from drowning, now from starvation." She couldn't help but laugh, the sound startling her. It had been so long since she allowed herself the luxury of humor. As days turned into weeks, their conversations grew deeper. Liam spoke of his fascination with the ocean, its beauty, its danger, and its mysteries. Eva, in turn, shared pieces of her life before the lighthouse, though she left out the most painful parts. They spent long hours talking while the sea roared outside, exchanging stories of their paths. Eva learned that Liam had been engaged once. His fiancée, Emily, had died unexpectedly in a car crash. He spoke of her with the same tenderness that Eva used when she spoke of her grandmother, the woman who raised her. "Emily loved the ocean," Liam said one evening as they sat on the balcony, watching the sunset behind the waves. "We used to dream of diving together, exploring the deepest parts of the world. She loved how the water made her feel free." Eva's heart ached for him. She understood that feeling of freedom, of escape, but she knew all too well how fleeting it was. "What happened after her death?" she asked, gently, hoping he would open up more. "I couldn't be in the city anymore," Liam admitted, his voice low. "Everywhere I went I saw her, her favorite cafe, the park we used to walk in. It was all too much. So when I came here to the ocean, it doesn't let me forget, but it does let me breathe again." Eva nodded, her own chest tight with memories she hadn't shared with him. She thought of Andrew and how she thought their love would be unbreakable, until it wasn't. She believed in promises and commitment, but in the end they were just words, fragile as paper. Still, as they sat in the quiet of the lighthouse, something in Eva began to shift. Maybe it was the ocean. Maybe it was Liam's openness, his willingness to be vulnerable. Or maybe it was the way the light from the lighthouse bathed them both in warm golden glow that made the world outside seem distant and unimportant. But just as she began to feel something stir within her, the past came rushing back. One afternoon, as they walked along the shore collecting driftwood, Liam asked a question that caught her off guard. "Why did you come here, Eva? What are you running from?" The question hung in the air, heavier than the approaching storm clouds. She stopped in her tracks, her heart pounding. "I'm not running," she said defensively. Liam turned to her, his expression gentle but insistent. "You don't have to tell me, but I think you are." She swallowed hard. For so long she had buried the pain, but Liam's gaze seemed to draw it to the surface. "I was engaged," she admitted finally. "I thought I had everything figured out. Then I found out he was cheating on me with my best friend." Liam's eyes softened. "I'm sorry. That's unforgivable." "I didn't stick around to find out if he thought so. I packed up and left. This place felt far enough away." Silence stretched between them, broken only by the crash of waves. Eva turned to him, needing to shift the focus. "What about you? Why are you out here, diving into the ocean instead of living in the city?" Liam hesitated. "I lost someone too. My fiancée Emily. She died in a car accident 2 years ago." Eva's breath hitched. "Liam!" "She was the love of my life," he said quietly, "and she died. I couldn't stay in the same place. Everywhere I went I saw her." They stood there for a long moment, two wounded souls drift in the same sea of loss. Winter arrived, bringing with it a fierce storm that lashed the coast. During one particularly brutal gale, the lighthouse's light faltered, and Eva and Liam worked through the night to keep it running. As they struggled together against the storm, Eva felt something shift within her. She had spent so long convincing herself that love was a trap, a cruel game that left people broken. But with Liam, love felt like a partnership, a light in the darkness. When the storm passed, and the beacon shone steadily once more, Eva turned to Liam. "I'm scared," she admitted. "Scared of letting someone in again. But the thought of losing you terrifies me even more." Liam reached for her hand. "I'm scared too, Eva. But maybe we can face the fear together." Their first kiss was hesitant, like the tentative steps of two people learning to trust again. But it was enough to ignite a spark, a warmth that carried them through the coldest nights. As winter gave way to spring, Eva and Liam began to rebuild, not just the lighthouse, but their lives. Together they turned the old structure into a hub of activity, inviting local fishermen and villagers to gather for storytelling and shared meals. Eva found herself rediscovering parts of herself that she thought were lost. She began writing again, filling journals with thoughts, poems, and reflections. Liam, meanwhile, continued to research, often pulling Eva along on his dives to show her the vibrant world beneath the waves. Their love grew slowly, like the steady light of the lighthouse. It was not without challenges. There were days when memories of their past resurfaced, threatening to pull them apart. But each time, they leaned on each other, finding strength in their shared journey. Eva was starting to believe that maybe she could trust love again, but the fear still lingered. As much as she wanted to let go, the hurt from her past clung to her like an anchor, holding her back from truly embracing the future. One quiet evening, as Liam and Eva sat side by side in their warm glow of the lighthouse lantern, he noticed a subtle tension in her posture. "Eva," Liam said softly, his voice filled with understanding, "I know you're still afraid, but we don't need to rush. I'm here, always, and we'll take this one step at a time." Eva looked into his eyes, feeling the sincerity in his words. For the first time in a long time, she believed him. She wasn't alone anymore. She didn't have to carry the weight of the past by herself. "I don't want to be afraid anymore," she whispered, reaching for his hand. "Maybe it's time to let go." They sat in silence, the song hum of the lighthouse filling the quiet as they held each other, knowing that whatever came next, they would face it together. A year after they met, Liam proposed to Eva at the top of the lighthouse. The setting sun bathed the world in golden light as he knelt before her, holding a simple ring. "Eva," he said, his voice steady but filled with emotion, "you've been my beacon in the darkest times. Will you marry me?" Tears filled her eyes as she nodded. Yes, Liam, always. Their wedding was a small, intimate affair held at the base of a lighthouse. As they exchanged vows, the light above them shone brightly, a symbol of their love, a beacon for others navigating the storms of life. Years later, the lighthouse stood as a testament to the resilience and love. Eva and Liam had 2 children who grew up listening to the stories of how their parents found each other in the storm. Together they kept the lighthouse running, ensuring its light would guide others as it had guided them. For Eva, the lighthouse was no longer just a refuge. It was a place of rebirth, of love, and of hope, a reminder that even in the darkest nights, the lights would always return. As the seasons changed, so did Eva's heart. The sharp edges of her past slowly dulled as she let herself trust in Liam's presence and love. They shared mornings where they sat by the fire, sipping coffee in the quiet contentment, and evenings where they would walk the shoreline, the light from the lighthouse flickering like a promise in the distance. Liam's dedication to his research and his love for the ocean was contagious. Eva found herself falling in love not only with him, but with the beauty he saw in the world around them. She started taking long walks along the cliffs, her mind brimming with new ideas and dreams she thought had been lost forever. The ocean was no longer something to escape from. It became a symbol of their shared future, unpredictable yet constant. One evening, as they stood together at the edge of the lighthouse, looking out over the vast star-filled sky, Eva turned to Liam with a soft smile. "You've taught me something," she said, her voice barely to a whisper. "To live in the present, not in the past, and to trust that no matter what, the light will always guide me home." Liam squeezed her hand, his heart full. "And I'll always be here to guide you." The more time Eva spent at the lighthouse, the more she understood the simple, profound truth that life was a collection of moments, some fleeting, others lasting. With Liam by her side, she learned to savor the quiet moments in between the chaos of life. They spent hours exploring the nearby woods, their laughter echoing through the trees, or simply sitting in silence, content with the comfort of each other's presence. One afternoon, as they worked side by side to repair the lighthouse's weathered exterior, Eva paused to look at him, her heart swelling with affection. The light from the sun caught his features, casting them in a glow that mirrored the warmth she felt inside. "I never thought I'd find someone like you," she confessed softly, wiping the sweat from her brow. Liam stopped and met her gaze. His eyes filled with an intensity that made her pulse quicken. "I never thought I'd find someone who could heal the wounds I didn't even know I had." Eva smiled, feeling an overwhelming sense of gratitude. The lighthouse, once a symbol of isolation, had become a symbol of new beginnings. With Liam, she had rediscovered her capacity to love, and to be loved in return.